Parliamentary Services.
Perth's time has expired. The question is the motion be agreed to, and I call the member for Herbert.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. There's a fair bit of what the member for Perth just said that I agree with. To develop the north of Australia, we have to look around at the rest of Australia and see what has gone before. You see the trouble that has gone through the Murray-Darling Basin, with troubles with salinity and over-farming and those sort of areas that went on there. If you speak to people around Australia, they would think that the Murray-Darling River system was the biggest in Australia. Well, it's far from the truth. Now, the Murray-Darling starts in Queensland and ends up in South Australia, so it rolls into one major exit. In Northern Australia, in Queensland, we have river systems. We have major river systems in the Burdekin and the Fitzroy rivers, and they run into the Murray-Darling. They run into Lake Eyre. They run into the Gulf of Carpentaria, and they run into the Pacific Ocean. Now, my comments in relation to this will be, by necessity, representing North Queensland in relation to the development of Northern Australia in that vein. When it comes to development in Northern Australia, I agree with the member for Perth. We must get our baseline science right because we can't make those mistakes again. When you do look at the development of Northern Australia and across the top end of Queensland, there are 25 river systems across the top end of Queensland. We know what's in about 5 of them. So if you're talking to CSIRO, to people like Professor Damien Burrows or Dr Damien Burrows, about his freshwater research, to know what's actually going on, and when we get to the development of Australia, his approach seems to make the most sense to me. When you're talking about the development of Australia, everyone wants the development in their area. But if you put it down and you do the matrix right, and what has gone wrong before is that we've done a higgledy-piggledy approach of 5 million here, 20 million there, to see what comes up. But if you do the matrix approach, where you look at the whole thing and say, who has the water? Put that down there. Then overlap that with who has the arable soil. Overlap that with that. Who has access to port and transport. Overlap with that. You'll come up with 5 or 6 projects that we can really progress. Now, I've always said when it comes to development in Northern Australia, the one thing we can't do is you can't put in a $20 million mung bean crop in the Gulf of Carpentaria if it's going to ruin the billion-dollar prawn industry. You can't put in a dam if it means that it's so flat there that you can't the fastest runner in the world, Usain Bolt, can't keep up with the rate of evaporation. We have to make sure that we do this right. But I think at the end of the day, what we do have to take counsel of here, and what we do have to take recognition of here, is that here is something that a government or a proposer, a group of people from opposition has taken to government where there cannot be too much politics being played. Because there are 8 seats north of the Tropic of Capricorn. There are 142 south. So for Tony Abbott and Joe Hockey and Andrew Robb and Julie Bishop and Warren Truss to come in here and say that this is the future of the country, that says a lot to me, and that says a lot to the people in the north of Australia, that suddenly we've got people actually understanding that we have basically half the country with a smidgen of the, with an eighth of the population, or a tenth of the population, and a minute number of seats. We have an even less number of senators that represent that part of the world. You know that this is the way we have to do. Andrew Robb spoke in Townsville last year, just before the election. He said at the moment, if you look at the tropical world, you've got a population in between the Tropic of Capricorn and the Tropic of Cancer. There's about 500 million people who would be considered middle class. That number is expected to grow by 2030, 2035 to 3.6 billion people who will need quality protein, quality food, quality education, quality health results. They'll need electricity. So what we have to do is that we have to recognise those opportunities and make the most of them. We are in perfect position, and the work that the government has done in securing free trade agreements with places like Japan and Korea, and well on the way with China, we have to make sure that we develop those things there. We cannot ignore the role of Papua New Guinea in the development of Northern Australia. We must look at where our largest neighbour is. Our largest neighbour is Indonesia, the largest Muslim nation in the country, in the world, and they are, sometimes our relationship is prickly, but at all times we are able to do business with people. So when it comes to development in Northern Australia, what first thing you must accept is that at last we have a government that's taking it seriously. At last we have a government that is actually doing the hard work to put down the patchwork to make sure that we are looking at the macro situation, and that from there we can develop the projects. That is what we have to do with this process, and we will deliver for the north of the country, and I thank the House.
Thank the member for Herbert. The question is that the